guys, Samantha from JSummer Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you how to create a bracelet with polymer clay using alcohol ink, metal leaf and a silkscreen. Now to start off with, you're going to want a really thin piece of translucent, preferably rolled out on the thinnest setting of your pasta machine, and this is Primo translucent. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to smooth that down onto my work surface, which in this case is a glazed ceramic tile. Make sure that there's no air bubbles, you want it just nice and flat. And you're going to grab your silkscreen of choice. And this is the silkscreen that I am going to be using. And you're just going to take that, peel off the protective backing, place that down into the middle of your translucent and smooth it down so that there are no air bubbles. Nice and smooth. Alright, and then before I do anything with that, the colours that we're going to be using are gold acrylic paint and black and white acrylic paint. Okay, and make sure you give them all a good shake before you start. And the gold is going to be a accent colour. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be quite deliberate about where I am placing the paint colours. So I'm going to pop the paint down onto the tile rather than on the silkscreen so that I can work quickly and deliberately with the paint. Because you've only got like a minute or two to apply it to the silkscreen before it dries. Make sure you have a sink of water ready to place this in so that you can immediately clean it after you're done with it. Okay, and now these rays over here I'm going to apply white paint to, and then the rays in the middle I'm going to apply black paint to, and I'm also going to apply a little bit of gold to them. So just map out where you want your colours before you start. Okay, so I'll start off with these rays over here, and I'm just going to apply a decently thick layer of paint, partially because I don't want the paint to dry on me when I'm doing this, but also because when you apply paint with the brush, it can take a little more paint than it would if you were using a card to apply the paint. So be generous with it. Then just go tap over the surface to make sure that the paint has penetrated through the screen. Then I will repeat on this side, applying a generous amount of paint. Okay, and if you want, you could just wipe a singular colour across the screen, but this can be quite nice too. Alright, now I'm very quickly going to clean the brush. Onto it quickly. Okay. Then I'm going to grab the black paint and I'm going to quickly place that across the surface. And I will apply the gold as an accent later once I have applied the black. Okay. That should do. Then grab the gold and just stipple that around like so. Okay, and that should just about do. Then I'm just going to use my finger to apply a little more paint over here. Just make sure that it hasn't dried out, just kind of move it around a little so that it re-wakes the paint before I move it off the screen. Alright, then you're going to take that screen and you're going to peel it up like so. Okay, and there we go. And then you want to make sure that you clean your brush and allow this to dry and clean your silk screen. Alright. And I might do a second application of paint later on, because when you apply it with the brush, I find that it has a fairly shallow application and the image can be a little spotty, but that's the price that generally gets paid if you want to have different colours throughout the screen. Alright, now I've moved the translucent just onto a piece of paper so that it's out of the way, and now I am going to bring over a piece of black polymer clay, And this was rolled out on the thickest setting of my pasta machine, and in this case I'm going to be using Kato because I don't want to apply a clasp to the cuff that I am making, and Kato is considerably stronger or at least firmer than Primo polymer clay. So if you want an open-ended cuff with no clasps on the end of it, I would recommend using Kato, but you can use Primo. There's no real difference other than the fact that this is a lot stiffer once baked. Alright, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some silver leaf. I'm just going to grab that. Okay. And just take that and apply it to the surface like so. And I think I'm probably going to need at least 2, if not 3 pieces for my bangle. And that one ripped, so let me just place that to the side and I'll work with that in a moment. But yeah, just apply enough leaf to cover whatever amount of space you need for your bangle will be. I've got it over here, so I actually only need 2 pieces of leaf, but if you need more or less, then adjust depending on the bangle that you're using. Then just quickly burnish that leaf down onto the clay so that it sticks. Right, and then trim up most of the extra clay, because don't want leaf on that, because then you can just use that straight for another project and you don't have to worry about it being leftovers or anything like that. Alright. Then from here I'm going to apply my alcohol inks, and the inks that I am using are these 2 over here, nice blues. You can use any colours you want, but these are the ones I'm going to be using. And I'm going to start with the darker of the 2, and I am just simply going to apply it to the surface of the clay, and this will spread quite naturally on its own. So just allow it to spread. You don't need to worry about applying extra alcohol to the surface to help it spread. It should do it quite well on its own. And I'm going to go in with the pool colour. And again, use any colours you want. I'm going with this because I'm going with an ocean themed bracelet today. But go with whatever inks happen to match your theme. Alright, and then I'm going to let that spread and see how the colours interact with one another. So I'll probably come back to this in, let's say about 2 minutes and see how things have bloomed, and then if we need to add some extra inks to the surface, I'll do that after they've all kind of interacted with one another. Okay, and I've just put that to the side on a piece of paper to let it sit and dry. In the meantime, I'm going to bring this back over again, and this should be completely dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip it over, and you should be able to very vaguely see the rays from under the paper. I'm actually going to go find some darker paper because I want to be able to see the white rays. The black ones I can see quite well, but I actually need to see the black ones. And I'm just going to bring that over, lift this up, place this down. Sorry, I know that's a bit of a shock, but there we go, you can see the white ones much better now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring over some black metal leaf, and I'm going to use a tool to just very gently apply it to only the white rays. Okay, and I'm just going to get this out of the pamphlet first. Okay. Just place that down. Okay, and I'm going to actually move this just a little further over this way so that I don't have this too close to it. And then this does not need to be perfectly accurate. I'm just going to take this little rubber tool and I'm going to use that to apply the metal leaf down. Like so. And I just need it to roughly cover the inside of these rays. And again, you can skip this if you want. They'll show up quite nicely against the alcohol ink background if you don't do this. But I thought it would be interesting to have some variation between the pieces. Okay, and here is how that will look at the end of that. Then I would recommend just giving it a very quick burnish just to make sure that they're stuck down like so. And if I turn it over, you can see there roughly how that's going to look. Alright, I'm going to put that to the side again, work with that in a bit, and I'm going to bring over the alcohol ink piece. And that's how that's looking. And it's crackled like this because I picked it up and placed it on the paper, so that's completely normal. Right, now I do need to apply more ink, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus mainly on the areas where there's still a fair bit of silver showing. I'm going to work with the darker colour. I'm going to just maybe drop that a little bit into the softer blue colour, just so I have a few dots of that. And then I'm going to bring over the lighter blue colour, and I'm going to do pretty much the same. Just drop that down and get it to kind of blend together. And also strengthen the colour because this blue colour is quite soft. Drop some of that there and just work with it and get the inks to move around to your liking. And the more you do this, the more they'll somewhat blend together and it creates a nice kind of watery effect. And then allow that to dry. Okay, and while that is drying, I'm going to take some of the gold acrylic paint and I'm going to add some highlights to these rays here. I'm just going to grab that and I'm just going to spot it around like so. And again, completely optional. And whenever you're doing these things, make sure it's on the back side of the translucent rather than the front side where you put the main image. So this will give it a nice 3D effect without actually affecting the underlying image. And I'm just going to spot that over, and then for these I might add a couple of spots as well. But just play around and add to all of these layers. Okay, and there we go. Then make sure that that is dry before moving on to the next step. I'm just going to pop that to the side and bring over the alcohol ink. That also should be dry. You can see how that looks. Okay, and I'm actually going to leave that pretty much the way it is. Go double check this, see if it fits, and it does. Good. Then I'm going to bring over the translucent, and just bear with me for one moment. There we go. And I'm going to place that right down in the middle, like so. Then take a piece of paper and smooth it down. Give it a good burnish. Make sure everything is stuck together. And this is how you create a nice multi-layered effect. And also it means that because the translucent literally has only just gone onto the alcohol ink, it's going to give us a clearer image, because I'm going to cut out the bracelet now and then pop it straight in the oven, which means that ink doesn't have time to leak into the translucent. And you can see the image that we've got quite well already. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to position that so that I get a nice amount of the image. And this kind of crackly actually came out quite well, where the silkscreen didn't print as well as I would have liked it, because it allows for kind of a nice watercolour effect. Right, and then just press that down, and sometimes it can be a little hard to get a complete cut because it's quite a large cutter. In this case, I would actually recommend bringing over something like an acrylic roller, and that can allow you to apply a decent amount of pressure without straining. There we go, and that should be a nice clean cut. And to make sure, I will always lift the outside first, and that should come away cleanly. And that's great leftovers, you can use that for a bunch of different things. And we cut this out on a piece of paper, so the back should be nice and smooth too. If I bring that over, you can see how nice and clean that is, and you can see what the front looks like too. Now I'm going to bring over the form to bake it on. Okay, and you can use a jar, but I'm going to use this metal bracelet form that I got off of eBay. You can find lots of these there. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to place that down in the middle. Just gently press it onto the surface, and it's not going to be as closed as I would like it to be, but that's easy to fix once it's baked, and I'll show you how to do that when it is baked. But for now, I'm just going to place that down, make sure that it just sticks at least enough to hold the form, and then I'm going to place that into the oven for a full hour at Cato's recommended temperature. Okay, and here it is out of the oven. You can see it looks quite nice. Now, when I took it out of the oven, it was still hot, and I took it off the cuff, and to make it a little smaller, what I did was, while it was still hot, I took another bangle blank and I actually squished it down onto the inside of that blank, like so, and then I popped that into a sink of water to cool it quickly. And that is how you can change the shape and size of your bangle, even once it's baked. So now I'm going to varnish it, but before I do that, I do want to just go over a quick thing. Mainly when working with cuffs, you probably want to work with Cato, because it is a really strong brand of clay, and just look, it takes a lot for me to actually get this to move around. It is really quite stiff. And I want to bring over another one that I made recently, which was made with Primo, and the same thing, I can get really it's quite easy to move it around, whereas this, it's really stiff. I can't get it any further than that. And that is something important to consider when making these. If you are planning to use something like Primo, I would recommend putting a clasp like this on, so that when you are wearing it, it can't open further than the clasp allows it. But if you want it to have a open set like this, I would recommend using a stronger brand of clay like the Cato. It really does make quite a big difference. Even if you just use the Cato for the backing, like if you just wanted to use it like I did, where it's just plain black, and then use things like translucent or coloured clay on top, that would still add the extra strength. But anyway, that is just something I wanted to point out, because it's not really something that you would think of when you're purchasing the clay, but it really is a lot stronger once baked. Right, now I want to varnish this, and I'm going to be using Varathane water-based polyurethane gloss varnish. And before you start this, I would recommend actually having a drying setup. So I've just grabbed some random bits around the place. I have these two little cardboard pieces, and then I have this acrylic block, and I'm going to dry the cuff like that. And I'm actually going to use this to help me varnish it so that I don't need to have my fingers involved as much. Okay, so I've just got a brush, and I'm probably going to need to apply 2 coats of varnish, and I'm going to work from the top down. And again, I'm using a thin coat of varnish. I would much rather apply like 3 coats of varnish to get to a nice shiny finish rather than one thick coat, especially in this case where it's not going to be lying flat. The varnish is going to tend towards pooling towards the ends of the cuff, so you want to apply a small amount at first. And you can use this to kind of move it around and allow you to get to all of those areas that you need to get to, and then give it about 15 minutes to dry, and then move on to the next coat. And I'm only going to apply the varnish to the top of the cuff. The inside I'm going to leave matte. Okay, and here it is once it's finished varnishing. And you can see there that it has cleared everything up quite nicely. And this is about 2 coats of varnish. That generally is enough. But yeah, also I'm going to leave the back as it is. The cuff actually gave it quite a nice pattern, and I like the matte finish, so I'll leave it like that. But yeah, that is pretty much it for today's tutorial. I do hope that you enjoyed. Please let me know in the comments below what you thought, and if you have any questions, leave them there as well, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. And if you like the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing, as it helps the channel out and is greatly appreciated. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please do consider becoming a member. There is a join button just below this video, or there is a link in the description to my Patreon account. They're both one and the same, where I post more complex tutorials every month, and it's also a great way to support the channel. But yeah, that is pretty much it. I do hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.